Awesome. Welcome, everyone. Good morning.
Good morning.
We're going to give it a few minutes as everyone joins us from across the state, but you're in the right place to learn all about our watersheds and wildlife and take a fun virtual field trip outside to some of our beautiful locations.
Yeah, so happy to have all you guys here this morning, and you might be able to see how nice it is out at our parks and sites where our staff is calling in from this morning. We hope it's nice weather out by you too. Thanks again for being here. We'll start in just a few moments. All right, looks like people are still trickling in. Thanks again for being here. And as we get started, wait for a few more people to join. You guys are excited this morning? I know I'm excited, and I think all of us calling in on the call here are excited today to be here with you this morning and talking to you about watersheds and wildlife. If you're excited, throw an emoji up for us. I want to see some clapping hands, some hearts, some thumbs up. Oh, I see one heart. I know we could do better than that, guys. Let's throw some hearts in there. Nice. Good. We're excited to have you. Super excited to have all you guys this morning. Thank you so much for being here. Well, we'll go ahead and get started as more people are kind of trickling in. Again, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for being here with us this morning. I wanted to give us a chance to kind of see where some of you guys are calling in from this morning. I'm going to share my screen really quick just with a map so that we could look at the state of California. So we'll talk to you about what all these blue spaces are here in just a second, but here is our state capital, Sacramento. If you guys are if you live in Sacramento or north of Sacramento up to the Oregon border, can you put a thumbs up in the call for us? If you live, oh, I see a couple. Glad to have you guys, our northerners here. That's awesome. If you live between Sacramento and LA, so here's Los Angeles down here, Sacramento up here, so anywhere maybe along the coast or east of the Sierra Nevada or here in the Great Central Valley, I want you guys to throw some clapping hands in for us. And if you live in Southern California, between LA, Los Angeles, and San Diego, or anywhere east of that, towards the southeastern border of our state, throw some hearts in for us. Awesome. Thanks again, guys. Thanks so much for being here this morning. My name is Dominic. I work for California State Parks and specifically the Watershed Interpretive Program. And like I mentioned earlier, we're going to be talking to you guys, and we have our experts around the state waiting to chime in with their knowledge about watersheds and wildlife. And so our goal in the Watershed Interpretive Program is to really help connect all of you or reconnect you to the watersheds that you live in here in California. And you might be asking yourself what a watershed is. And my friend Francesca on the call today will talk to us a little bit more about what we mean by the word watershed. But we all live in one. And we like to see, or we like to think of watersheds like neighborhoods. So, like you have your neighbors, maybe your friends, family. Uh, that's just like a watershed. Everyone that lives there, including plants and animals, are all part of this neighborhood, and they all work together here in the watershed. So these places are watersheds. The one we'll be talking about today specifically belongs to everyone in California, including you. So I know we're here virtually today on our Watersheds and Wildlife program, but we really hope to see you in person at some of the sites that we're calling in from today. And so specifically today, we're going to be talking about the San Joaquin River watershed. And so if you see this blue area right here in the middle of the screen, I'll circle it for you. This blue area just here. We'll zoom in a little bit closer and let me erase that just really quick, guys. Sorry about that. So we see a lot of smaller watersheds are all contributing to the great San Joaquin River down here in the Central Valley. So today we have folks up at Dos Rios Ranch State Park and also closer down to Fresno by, excuse me, by the Millerton Lake area, where the San Joaquin River comes out of a reservoir here as well. So we've got upper and lower San Joaquin River watershed to talk about today. And the San Joaquin River is really cool because it's the second longest river in California at almost 400 miles long. And it's joined by many different rivers on its way to the Pacific Ocean. And so I mentioned a few of my colleagues are joining me today to talk about watersheds and wildlife. And the first one we'll be hearing from today is my friend Francesca from California Department of Fish and Wildlife. So Francesca, I'll pass it over to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Dominic. Good morning, everyone. My name is Francesca, and as Dominic said, I work for the California Department of Fish and Wildlife, which is also called CDFW. And our agency's job is to manage all of the wildlife found in California. So if you stop and think about that for a second, that's a lot of animals, from bees to mountain lions to fish out in the ocean to the ones swimming right behind our presenters today. There are thousands of species of animals found in California. And we have hundreds of scientists that work for us throughout the state that study and monitor and learn about these animals and their homes. So today, as we were kind of setting the stage, we're going to be talking about animals that live pretty much in the water, the ones that are found near our watersheds, which you can already start to think about what animals might be out here behind Victoria and Julian at their places where we're going to broadcast from. But we're going to be focusing on those fun animals today. And as we think about that, we're going to be thinking about animals' homes and their habitats. And we're going to introduce this topic of watershed. So raise your hand if you've ever heard that science word called watershed before. And if it's a new word for you, I like to start looking at pictures so we can understand what a new science word means. So I'm going to pull up a picture of a watershed. And take a look at this image. And I want you to think about the blue versus the green versus the brown, and try and figure out where the land is, where the sky is, where is the water coming from? So you might be noticing the clouds and some rain, and the water flowing down the mountains, through the rivers, getting collected somewhere or stored somewhere, maybe a lake, maybe a bigger river, maybe the ocean. All of this area is called the watershed. So if we think about breaking down a big scientific word, we all know what water means, right? Water is the rain flowing down the hills. In a shed, maybe you know about a storage shed. Maybe on your playground, you have all your equipment being stored, all the balls and all of your equipment is in a shed. And sheds are where we store things. So a watershed is where water is stored out in the environment. And it's a really cool thing to learn more about in regards to where animals might be living and to really kind of start studying the world around us. So throughout today's program, we're going to be learning a bit more about watersheds. And as Dominic just showed those cool maps, we're going to zoom you in live to check out some of these real life watersheds with some of our interpreter friends that can teach you about the landscapes and about the animals that are found out there. So if you guys are excited and ready, we're going to pass it off to our first presenter, Julian at Dos Rios. How's it going, Julian?
I'm great, Francesca. Thank you for the introduction. I am here at Dos Rios, here in the Central Valley. I'm wondering if we had a chance to check out the map so people can see exactly where I'm at.
Yeah, let me share that map for you, Julian.
Thanks, Dominic.
Sure. So I'm going to zoom in to where we won't see Julian on this map, but we will see where he is at Dos Rios Ranch State Park. Does this work for you, Julian?
Yeah, that looks great. So here we are in the great Central Valley of California, and this is a very special place for many reasons, which we'll get to talk about today. But one of the first things I wanted to talk about is here in the Central Valley is some of you might have been tuning in, I saw a lot of hands and hearts going up when people were asked if they lived in this area between Sacramento and Los Angeles. And a lot of this area is, in fact, the Great Central Valley. Thank you for sharing that photo for us, Dominic. That's very helpful. So now we are here in the valley, and something I wanted to talk about is, so for those of us that have either live in the valley or have passed through the valley, you might have noticed that a lot of the area around us is really flat, and there's probably a lot of agriculture or farmland. The valley is a very rich and fertile area that grows so much of the California and even the United States food all through agriculture and farmland. But if you think about it, if you ever think about going through a farm or orchards, you might not see too many animals, aside from any animals that are living on the farm, like cows or chickens maybe, but there's not a lot of wild animals that live here in the Central Valley, or maybe not too many that you might see. So something I wanted to show you is we have our friend Derek, who is on our field cam, and he's showing us what some of these farms actually look like. So if we can check out to see what Derek is looking at, that would be great. So we've got Derek here, and he's looking at a farm. So if you look around, there's rows and rows of orchards, and it's really nice. You know, I think some of these trees are cherry trees and different sorts of nuts like almonds and walnuts. But Derek, I don't know if he's seen any wildlife in there. Do you guys see any wildlife? Maybe there might be some birds flying by, but nothing that's really living there full time. And that's simply because although there's lots of trees there, it's not essentially really good habitat or homes for these animals. So what happened was, this park that I'm at right now, Dos Rios, is actually the newest state park in the whole California state park system. And now there's over 280 state parks, and this is the newest one. So this is actually, it's the newest one in over about 10 years. So some of us on today's call might be about 10 years old or even younger. So think about that a new California state park hasn't been created in over that long. So it's a very exciting and special thing that we have this park here, and it's available to all of you. And it's part of our new watershed neighborhood here in this California's Central Valley. So I want to talk more about why this place is so special. So one, like I mentioned, is because it's new to state parks, which is really awesome, because now this is a place that you, your friends, and your family can come visit. But also, this place where I'm standing, it's very beautiful. If you notice, I've got some nice, beautiful water behind me, some nice, clear blue skies. There's birds singing in these trees. There's lots of things splashing around in the water behind me. So keep an eye out for anything, any wildlife that you see during my time here with you all. But this place was not always this beautiful, wild, restored property. In fact, like we saw on the field cam, just over about 10 or 15 years ago, this whole park behind me actually looked just like that orchard that we saw earlier. This whole park was all farmland. It was flat. There might have been some cattle here, but it was all used for agriculture, which is great because it helps feed all of us at home and across the state and beyond. But also, it's sometimes not too good for the animals and the wildlife in our watersheds because they don't have homes to go to. So if you think about I want to think of this park as our neighborhood. And can you imagine a neighborhood with no homes? That'd be kind of weird, right? Where would everybody go? So this was a neighborhood with no homes because it was still along water, but now a very awesome nonprofit organization, a group of people called River Partners, they came to this property and they converted it from farmland into a very awesome natural space by planting trees and doing all sorts of awesome restoration work, or basically restoration. If you haven't heard that word, it's kind of like helping a thing and kind of creating it back into a great version of itself. So we're taking something old or maybe damaged and broken and kind of repairing it back into good shape. So Dominic, I can you share us some of these photos of the restoration so we can all get an idea of what this looks like? So if you look at this image, we'll see a lot of big, flat, open land, and it's all dirt. And this is what the beginning of this restoration process looked like. So River Partners removed all of the orchards, all of the trees that were here for agriculture, and they started to plant new trees that are native to this habitat, or they occur here naturally. So we can flip through some of these photos, Dominic, and get an idea of what this process looked like. So here's an image of some of the new trees that went in. These are not fruit trees. They look like they could be almonds or maybe some other sort of fruit, but they're actually cottonwood trees, which are just native trees to this area. And up next, we'll see that there are another image of the restoration kind of growing in. And over the course of the last 10 years or so, the process began to really take off, and all of these trees that were planted really began to grow and grow. And we'll see that in the next few images as well. So here we see some more of the trees growing in. And finally, this is kind of what we ended up on. Right back, if we go back a couple images, I think we'll see kind of the finished product of the restoration. There it is. So right there, that looks a whole lot different from what we saw in the beginning, or even what we saw from the field cam, that orchard. This is entirely different. This is lots and lots of plants and trees and areas for animals to grow, animals to eat food, to have shelter, to have water, all of those necessary things that they need in their neighborhood to live and survive happily and to be healthy. So now, thank you for sharing those, Dominic. Now we're here today, and we've got this beautiful area behind me. So I want to ask you, now that there's all these trees and plants and there's some good water, think about to yourself, or maybe you can share with your partner next to you, what kinds of animals do you think might be living here in this beautiful area? So think about that for a few seconds, and maybe you might be able to hear some of them too. I don't know if you all can hear that, but there's this big tree right next to me, and there's lots of birds chirping and singing in there. And that's just one of the few examples of all the animals that have moved into this neighborhood now that their homes have been created. So we've got, of course, lots of birds that live in the trees, but there's also this water here behind me. And some of you might have guessed maybe like some ducks or maybe some sort of other water birds that like to live on the water or near the water. You're absolutely right. There's lots of birds that live in the banks of the water around me, and they'll eat the fish that are in the water. There's also fish and turtles and all sorts of cool aquatic creatures that call this water behind me home. But also there's a few other creatures as well. Maybe some of you were thinking about maybe bigger animals like a beaver or maybe a river otter. Raise your hand if you've ever seen one of those before. If you've ever seen a beaver or a river otter. They might be kind of hard to see sometimes, but when you're in an area like this that is providing food and shelter for them, they come around a lot more. And in fact, sometimes if we're lucky, we get to see about 4 river otters swimming around in this water throughout the day. So if we're lucky, we'll see something swimming behind me today. So that's really awesome that all of this shelter has been created for these animals. And it's a really special place because of that. So that's the second reason. So of course, 1, it's a new park. 2, it's providing lots of shelter for animals. But the third thing I want to talk about is Dos Rios is also a very special place because it's along the confluence, or if you haven't heard that word before, where 2 bodies of water come together or merge. It's at the confluence of 2 rivers, the San Joaquin River and the Tuolumne River. And right here at the property, those 2 rivers come together. And Dominic talked about that earlier, about the San Joaquin River and how long and great it is. And that's the same river that's found here at this property. Now, the really cool thing about that is sometimes when the weather and other conditions like snow melt and all sorts of things, rainfall, when they're all just right, a lot of the area in this park can actually flood. So those river waters come all the way up and they flood and spread out. And that's a really good thing, actually, for the park's biodiversity, or the animals that live here and the plants, because that flooding creates lots of shelter for different fish that we'll talk about more in a little while. But Dominic, I do have a picture of that flooding if you want to show our friends. Check that out. So can you imagine standing in that water? That's kind of deep. And most of the time, maybe about 95% of the time, that area is completely dry. But every once in a while, it doesn't happen every year, but maybe every couple years, every few years, it just depends. But all of that river water comes all the way up and it floods this entire land. And it brings lots of good rich nutrients to the plants, and to the fish can have more areas to live and maybe even lay eggs. We'll talk about that in a little while. But you might be wondering about, where did all the land animals go? Well, luckily, there is some high ground in this floodplain, is what this land is called. It's an area that floods. It's right next to the water. And there's high ground where these animals can escape, and they have their food and shelter and all the things that they need in the neighborhood as well. So there's a really special creature I want to talk about, and it's called the riparian brush rabbit. And I think Dominic has an awesome picture of that one as well. And check that little cute rabbit out. Let's see some hearts if you think that rabbit is super cute. This is an endangered species of rabbit, and look how small it is. It'll fit right in the palm of your hands. Can you imagine holding something like that? Of course, we don't want to get too close to our wildlife, but look, in this case, someone is holding it because it's endangered and it needs our help. So that's a full-grown adult, and look how small it is. Look how awesome that is. This is a rabbit that lives here in the park, but it's facing some challenges from habitat loss. So like I mentioned, it has nowhere to go. There's no homes in its neighborhood. But now that there are homes created for this rabbit, they are living here in the park, and they are thriving, and they're doing really awesome. And that's just one of the few examples of animals that have been living here and thriving here. And in fact, I have a really special, awesome guest here that's going to talk to you all more about some of the other animals that live here, but not on the land, but actually living in the water and in the rivers. So I'd like to introduce my good friend, Gail. Gail Davis is here from the Department of Fish and Wildlife. And today she's going to talk to you all about some salmon. So thank you, Gail.
Hi. Thank you. Hello, everyone. So today, I want to talk a little bit more about a really special animal that lives here, and it is the Chinook salmon. See? Okay, so they don't look like this. This is stuffed. But you might be thinking, Gail, it's a fish. How exciting can it be? Well, I've thought that before. And it is really exciting. And I can't tell you all the exciting things about it today, but I can tell you some of the things. So let's start out with the life cycle. So first thing they do, we'll start with laying their eggs. So they lay their eggs in the rivers, in the rocks in the bottom of the rivers. And when they hatch, after a while, they start swimming around, and they're about this big. Now they're little, and they need to have a place to hide from predators, animals that are going to eat them, and they need to find food. And that's when the restored habitat here, the floodplains that Julian was just talking about, those are super important to the baby fish. In fact, we even call them like the nurseries of the baby salmon. So if you could switch, and I want you to see here the fish that, now this fish, this picture makes it look bigger, but really it's only about this big, about an inch long. And you see the markings on it. Those markings are only on the babies, the dark marks that go up and down, and then it helps it hide. It helps it hide from predators amongst the plants and things that are in the floodplain. So my challenge to you is to take a look at the next picture and see if you can find the fish. Now you're a predator, you're looking for fish to eat. What do you think? Take a minute. There's about 10 or 12 or so fish in there. Do you see that many fish? Okay, let's look at the next slide and see if you were right. Did you see those fish? That is why it's important, because they're looking for things that'll fit in their mouths. Their mouths are really small and they can hide and look for food in the floodplains. So that's super important. Now, when they get older, they're going to be, I kind of think of them as the teenagers of the salmon world. So they're teenagers, college age kids, and they're going to be moving away from home. So when they're that big, they're called smolts, or another word for them is fingerlings, because they're about the size of an adult's finger. So they go out to the ocean and they grow up in the ocean. So they're out there 2, 3, maybe 4 years, mostly 2 or 3 years. And then they come back, and most of them will come back and lay their eggs in the same rivers where they were hatched, which is amazing in itself. How did they find their way back? But when they do that, this is, okay, it's a little bit sad, but it's cool afterwards. So after they lay their eggs, they die. Now, the Pacific salmon are the ones that die, and they're the ones that go out into the ocean, the Pacific Ocean, which is the ocean next to California. The salmon that live in the Atlantic Ocean, the ocean on the other side of the country, they don't die. But what's really cool is, if you think about it, they went out to the ocean, like I said, a fingerling about the size of an adult, as an adult's finger. And look how big they are when they come back after they've grown up in the ocean. Look at that. All that, their whole body practically is from the ocean. They grew up, they ate there, and all of that is from the ocean. So when they come back, they lay their eggs and they die. But there's a whole lot of wildlife, just like Julian was talking about, a whole lot of wildlife that live around here that eat the salmon, eat their bodies. Birds are one of them. Now, you might not think about birds, but we've got turkey vulture and we've got the bald eagle. And do you know which is which? The bald eagle has the white head. Yeah, so they like to eat the meat off of the salmon bodies, and also all kinds of mammals. There's bobcats and coyotes and foxes, and next is raccoons, and like Julian said, the river otters. So they like to eat the meat too. Besides all the insects, and there's all kinds of animals, dozens of animals that like to eat this. So they are getting nutrition that this big salmon brought back, like a big grocery truck bringing food to the neighborhood. Okay, now these critters have all eaten from the salmon, and then they go wandering around the neighborhood watershed. And you know what happens when you eat? You poop. So they are out there in the watershed pooping around all these plants, and the poop is actually fertilizer. It's giving the plants nutrition too. So it's a wonderful, wonderful system, and salmon are really, really important animals. And not all the salmon stop here. Some of them keep on going along with their trout cousins, and they keep swimming up the San Joaquin to where Victoria is. So let's go to Victoria and see what she has to say.
Cool. Thank you, Gail and Julian. That was beautiful portrayal of the middle of the San Joaquin River watershed and the creatures. Hi, my name is Victoria Knight. I work for California Department of Fish and Wildlife. I'm here at the San Joaquin Hatchery, which is right behind those trees. And we are along the southernmost portion of the San Joaquin River, the San Joaquin River watershed. And it's interesting, just so I can put us on the map, we're located here at the hatchery in the city of Friant, but this river actually is the separation line between Madera County to our north and Fresno County to the south. So we're in Fresno County, but it's kind of interesting that we have a river that makes the line for the counties. I think it's cool. Okay, anyway, so I'm going to show you, do a little panorama of this beautiful river I'm standing in front of, and just take a notice. What do you see? What do you notice? All right. So you might have noticed we have lots of beautiful trees that line this river. Some of them are willows. Willows are fantastic to keep the riverbank from eroding, and also so that little fish can hide underneath in the branches and the roots and escape predation. You probably also noticed that we have a dam behind us. This is the Friant Dam, and it separates the upper and the lower San Joaquin River watershed, or San Joaquin River. And up above, you can see the mountains. Those are the Sierra Nevada mountains. It's a beautiful mountain range. It's vast and it's filled with so much wildlife. It's absolutely fantastic. So you'll have to come and visit us here for sure. But I want to talk to you a little bit about the Upper San Joaquin River watershed. If we might have a picture of that beautiful river. Okay, so this is the Upper San Joaquin River. And what do you notice? Yes, it's flowing over granite. It has lots of oxygen going into it, and it's super clear. This is and clean. This is the perfect place for a fish to live. And also, when I go up there, I dip my cup and I take a drink. Would you guys do that? You should. It is clear. It is clean. It's delicious. Anyway, so all the way up into the Upper San Joaquin River, we have tons of these rivers and little tributaries that all flow into the major San Joaquin River, but we also have alpine lakes. And there are natural alpine lakes up here and man-made, but there are many, many lakes. It is the most beautiful place with so much wildlife, so many neighbors living up here. You really have to visit. Okay, so now I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the lower. Oh, by the way, I grew up there, so it's fantastic. And historically, the Chinook salmon and rainbow trout used to run all the way from the top of the San Joaquin River watershed, all the way past my house, all the way past where we are here on this river, then out past Julian and Gail at Dos Rios, and out into the open ocean. They would all come back by smell all the way to the top of this watershed. But don't feel bad, because now they come back to the bottom of this dam. Anyway, I want to introduce Gail's neighbor and friend. She talked about the salmon, but there's also a fantastic fish that lives in here, the rainbow trout. So let me introduce you to my friend. So as you could see, the rainbow trout has dark colorings on top, dark green and brown dots. And it has this coloring while it's living in the rivers and the lakes. Why do you think this is? All right. Okay. So anyway, I just want to say that these are fantastic fish. And unlike the Chinook salmon or the salmon, they actually come and go again and again, back and forth. They make this journey multiple times. So please come visit me at the San Joaquin Hatchery, learn about rainbow trout, all the neighbors in the San Joaquin River watershed. And thank you for listening. Back to you, Gail and Julian.
Yeah, Victoria, just to interrupt you for a second, we've got a turtle on our live cam that we're going to pin. Do you see turtles up where you are ever?
No, but the geese are back.
Oh, cool.
We do have turtles up here. We do. Oh,
Awesome. Are you seeing that too, Julian? It looks like
Sorry
we're
about that.
zooming in on a turtle's head popping up. Do you want to tell
No.
everyone about
Yeah.
the turtles?
Yeah, I'd love to see the live cam up. I don't know if I see it right now, but yes, right behind me in this this is actually a pond, which I would like to talk a little bit more about. I say it's a pond, but if you look at it, it really doesn't look like a pond because it's really big, it's long, and it's narrow. And if you're like me, when I look at this body of water, it reminds me of a river. Again, because it's long and narrow and it kind of has this turning, meandering shape to it. But that's actually because once upon a time, it actually was part of the Tuolumne River. So I mentioned how there's two rivers here at Dos Rios. One of them is the Tuolumne River, and the Tuolumne River is not too far from where we are at right now. But actually, over time, the course of that river changes naturally, and we get things and features of water that are called oxbows, or in this case, it's like an oxbow pond. But it's kind of just like a segment or a turn of the river that gets separated from the main course, and then it's just kind of left on its own. And that's what we've got right here behind me. And as we saw in the live cam, it's home to many different animals like we talked about earlier. And in this case, looks like we've got a turtle that's hanging out there. I didn't get a good look at it, but we've got two turtles that live in this body of water. One of them is just called a red-eared slider. And some of you might have seen those before. Some of you actually might have those as pets. They've got those red lines on their ears, and they are living all over this pond here. But actually, they're an invasive species. But the other species is a native species, meaning that it's always supposed to be here and it's protected. It's actually federally threatened. And that species of turtle is called the Western pond turtle. So I didn't get the greatest look, but maybe it's one of those. And I also just heard a big splash right now too. So there's lots of critters living in this water. And let's see, can we just tell what we're looking at? It's kind of dark, I think.
Yeah, it looks like a red-eared slider based on
Okay,
the
great.
telltale sign right there. His head
Yeah.
is sticking out.
Yeah, pretty easy to identify with those red ears. But yeah, I think as a group, we could kind of all talk about the importance of these watersheds and how they operate as a neighborhood for all the animals, not only on land, but in the water as well. So it's something to keep in mind that there's all these different neighbors and they all live on different streets and different houses, but they all share this space in this land and live in this community. And it's really awesome that places like Dos Rios and all of these watersheds are here to protect them and to serve as their homes, providing them with food and shelter and all the space that they need. So yes, like Victoria was saying, I invite all of you, maybe who live in the area or maybe come pass through the area to stop by Dos Rios, because this place is also yours as well to enjoy. And this park is for you. And I'd love to see you out here enjoying this beautiful scenery and seeing some of the awesome wildlife. So thanks again for checking that out. And yeah, Gail, if you want to come on in and you have any last messages here.
Are there any questions? Do we have
There
any?
are. Yeah, we're seeing some questions roll in. I think
Great.
the first one is for Dos Rios, and then we've got one for Victoria too. But the first one, this is a class from Pennsylvania, it looks like, wants to know how long ago this area was made. And this came in when you were
Whoa.
talking about the restoration project.
Okay, that's a great question. And thanks for tuning in from Pennsylvania. That's a long way from where we are right now. But I hope one day you can come out here and check out Dos Rios. So the question was, when was this place created? So like I mentioned, this place was not always a park. And actually it wasn't before 2012, this place was all privately owned by farmers and farmland. And in 2012 is when it was sold to that awesome organization that I mentioned. They're called River Partners, and they bought this property. And it's a big property. Like if you remember that map that Dominic showed us in the beginning, it's 1,600 acres, which is a really big space. And they converted all of that into now natural space. So it started in 2012 and they began restoration the very next year in 2013. And every year after that, up until 2020, they were planting trees and planting plants and getting this place back to a natural place. And now they completed it in 2020. And now that State Parks is here, it's been opened up to the public and all of you, whether you're in California or not, to come on out and enjoy this beautiful space. So great question. Thank you for asking that.
Awesome. And I think we have one for Gail here. A lot of questions about the animals. And one student is wondering if you've ever adopted any of those animals. Maybe you can talk to them about our wild animal friends.
Wow. No, we don't adopt them because they are wild and they just will not, they're not like cats and dogs that they will always act wild. So also the only way that we, if we do end up adopting, it's because maybe they were hurt and they go to our wildlife rehabilitation centers and they get nursed back to health. And if they can get released back into the wild, they will. And if not, they often go to a zoo, and sometimes zoos across the country have animals that were hurt and nursed back to health here in California and then shipped, you know, and sent to a new home, a forever home someplace else. But it's not allowed, it's not legal, and it's not good for the animals because they wouldn't be happy living with us. They'd rather be out here in their natural habitat. So.
Perfect. And let's see. From Miss Elliott's class, it looks like Dorothy wants to know what the green stuff was in the water. And I think this came in when Victoria was showing those cool close-ups right behind you. If you could show us that again, that'd be awesome.
Oh, yeah, fantastic. That is an algae. Is this, I hope this is what you wanted to see.
Yeah.
And check it out. Our geese came back. And this is an algae. Fish like to nibble on it, and so do the aquatic insects. We have a very healthy group of aquatic insects out here, and that helps to show us if the river is really clean and fresh, or if it has too much pollution. Even the insects will not live here if it has too much pollution. So this is a fantastic river for fish. And I ended up drinking a gallon of it when I fell off my kayak last week. So it's still clean. Thank you for the question.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll do a couple more questions before we wrap up, kind of to tag along with what you're saying. It looks like one student's wondering what type of pollution would affect the habitat and what are we doing as state parks and CDFW to maybe combat some of that pollution.
Well, there's natural pollution such as too much silt. And if we have fires, create a lot of stuff that goes into the rivers, that helps them not be able to smell their way home. But then also some residues for things we might put into the rivers or runoff, such as fertilizers, pesticides. There are a multitude of different things. The idea is mostly we just keep it as clean as we possibly can. And thank you for that question. It's very important. So these fish can find their way home. Yeah.
Can I add to that answer?
Please.
So one thing that I don't know that we said, but salmon and trout need cold water.
Yes.
And one type of pollution is called thermal pollution. Thermal meaning, heat. So if there is thermal pollution, say a factory is putting out water or, something in the river that's warmer, then that will heat up the water in the river or in the ocean. It can cause a problem. So that's another type that we have to be careful of is the chemicals and the physical, like the silt and sand and stuff that can come off the land, like after wildfires and such, and the thermal. So yeah, good question.
Fantastic.
There's one final question for you, Julian, about recreation, and people are wondering if they could swim there, and what other types of recreation you might be able to do out there.
Yeah, that's a great question. And a lot of people have that question. And the good news is there's a lot of recreational opportunities right now, and there will be even more in the future. So like I mentioned, this place is brand new. It's not even a year old yet. It opened last June. So we're coming up on our first birthday. But what that means for us as people that want to come out and recreate. So luckily, there's lots of hiking trails that we can go on and explore and see lots of other cool things in the park. But here on the water, we will get the chance to actually get on the water with kayaks or paddle boards, anything that's non-motorized. That'll be coming soon, but we just need a little bit of time. Since we're so new, we have to create some facilities that allow us to get down to the water safely. Because if you notice, it's kind of a steep drop down here, and I'd have a hard time getting down to that water, especially if I had like a kayak or some sort of boat with me. So there will be some water recreation in the future, but there's hiking trails to do. And maybe in the distant future, you and your families and friends can come out and camp here. But again, this park is new, so it's still being developed.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys. Thanks so much for all of your knowledge. And everyone on the call, if we could show Victoria and Gail and Julian some love today. We all learned so much from you guys. Thank you so much, you three, for helping us learn about our watersheds. And thanks to everyone for joining us this morning. We really appreciate you guys being here and hope you learned something interesting today. And we hope you'll come to visit the watershed. Like everyone had said today, we all want to see you come out in person. And remember that these lands belong to all of us. And they are like neighborhoods. And we treat our neighbors with respect. And we want to make sure that we do that when we're out in our watersheds as well. And we hope you learned, or we hope you will come out to see us. And like I said, hope you learned something. And if you want to learn more, feel free to scan that QR code and head to the website. This is our last Watersheds and Wildlife program for this school year. But that doesn't mean that you have to stop learning. You can visit the website and download activities and learn more about the watersheds that you are a part of and learn more about your neighbors there. So again, thank you guys so much for being here. We really appreciate it, and we hope to see you soon.
Awesome. Thank you all. And we'll leave the screen up for just a second for any teachers that want to scan this QR code and visit our website as we all sign off. So thank you much.
We're good.
That
Okay.
was awesome.